guys, and welcome to Trucking Along with Kiersey. That's me, your positive voice in trucking. Today I want to talk about winter driving. I did talk about it in another video, just a little bit, about some of my journeys going to Wyoming, but I did get a couple requests on some tips of how you can prepare yourself both mentally, physically, and all that good stuff. So stick with me, and I'll be right back. Okay, the first thing you need to do is mentally prepare yourself for going through winter driving. You know, some people don't have the experience, so you might be a lot more nervous. You know, some people have never driven through snow before, so if you've even driven through snow, calm yourself a little bit because you already know more than somebody else who grew up in Mississippi. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is understand that you are absolutely in control of this vehicle. You have the ability to tell your dispatch that you are shutting down. If you really don't feel safe, shut it down. And if they're that worried about the load, they'll have somebody else come pick you up, pick up the load from you, and they'll deliver it. Otherwise, they're just gonna postpone the appointment and no big deal. So either way, that relieves all the pressure off of you completely. The other thing is that you get to control putting your hazards on and just going slow. These people can go flying past you all they want. If you're just trucking along at 45 miles per hour and that's where you feel safe, then that's what you do. And honestly, they don't know if you have a problem with your brakes or your transmission or whatever. For all they know, you have a problem and you're trying to get to the nearest exit just to get, you know, your truck worked on. But don't feel intimidated to try to go keep up with everybody else. You don't have that ability yet. So that's another issue, just you're in control. Because you're in control, nobody else can push you to do something that you don't want to do, whether it's a dispatch or the other drivers out on the road. That's tip one. Okay. Number two, do not leave for the day before you look on the weather apps. Look ahead into the area you're going into. If you pull up the Weather Channel app, they have different layers. There's a little button that you click on and it has layers, and you can apply wind speeds and it'll give you all the colors. It'll do temperatures, it'll do predicted snowfall, predicted precipitation, past precipitation. So plan ahead. The problem is that a lot of these places like Colorado and Wyoming, the weather can change constantly. So you want to be prepared for that. Keep stopping along the way. Just pull over for a second where you can like check your phone app. Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Will I be able to get as far as I want today? In another video, I talked about leaving a notepad like this, and on one side you put your route. On the other side, you should have a list of all the truck stops that you can stop at. You should have a list of all the truck stops that you could stop at along the way. Now, normally, I say 150 miles. If it's snowing and it's bad weather you're going into, I would recommend every 50 miles. And then that way you can judge. Pull over, like have, you know, Petro is at this exit, and then 50 miles later there's a TA at this exit, and then 50 miles later, and then that way you can gauge how far you have to go. If you don't feel like you can make it, you're tired, or the weather's getting worse and worse, pull over. Just stop. I'm not kidding. That's the safest thing to do. So do not even start your day unless you have that routing written down and you have the every 50 mile point. You have to have looked at your phone app. And don't rely on Trucker Path to give you truck stops along the way, because guess what happens when you go into mountains? Guess what happens when it snows? You lose data. So now you have nothing, right? That's why in another video I say get the little pocket type of truck stop book, and then you can highlight all the places that you really like along the way, but you could also use that little book when you have no data. So those are some really important issues. You always have to know where you're going to be stopping and where you can stop along the way. Now, example like Wyoming. A lot of people hate Wyoming. I would rather drive through Wyoming than through Colorado over Vail on I-70. Wyoming has a lot of places to park. They have a lot of truck stops that get really busy, but they also have a lot of rest areas, and some of them are just parking, so there may not be any restrooms, which leads me to the next issue. Always have food. If you wind up shutting down and like I-80 could be closed for like 2-3 days, okay, you have no food on the truck, then what? So you have to have preparations. You may be parked in just a truck parking area. And if they shut down the highway, they put gates down and they force you off. You have to park. It doesn't mean you're going to be at a truck stop. It doesn't mean you're going to have a bathroom. So have food, have peanut butter, have bread, have tuna, have crackers, have anything that would be a dry product that you wouldn't need to refrigerate if you don't have a refrigerator right away. I didn't get a refrigerator for the first 1.5 years. Oh my God, how did I live out on the road without a refrigerator, right? I used my points to get a $25 ice chest from a TA. And then I used my points to get free ice. And I would put condiments and lunch meat and stuff like that in the cooler. Now, when you go out on the road and you're in Wyoming, there's going to be 4 feet of snow on the ground. So you don't even need the ice. You can scoop it up and, you know, put your stuff in Ziploc bags and you have a refrigerator right there on the truck. The important thing is to go back to my hygiene video, which I'm going to post right up here, so that you can go look at that, because towards the end of that, I talk about having a makeshift commode. It sounds gross, but you're going to need it. Trust me, if you wind up getting stuck on the side of the road for 2-3 days, this happens, I'm not making it up, that you would much rather be more comfortable having something that's clean and on the truck and something that's your hygienic. And you know, what are you going to do if you don't have something prepared and you're on the side of a road for 2 days? It's not going to be cool. You're going to be climbing underneath the trailer to go to the bathroom? Not cool. Okay? In addition to the food, you have to make sure you have water. You know, stay hydrated. You know, if you have animals, you have to make sure you prepared food for them, and you came with food, and you've got kitty litter for the cat, and you know, your dog's gonna have to go get walked, and are you gonna be wanting to walk a dog in 3 feet of snow? You have to do what you have to do, but you have to make sure you're prepared. You can't just like go through this and not prepare at all. Have gear. Have a plan of what kind of gear you're gonna need to take with you. Have your boots, maybe a shovel, you know, have thermal underwear. Some of the truck stops, they sell electric blankets that plug into a 12 volt. You might want to look into that. Don't assume that your APU is going to work. Don't assume that your bunk heater is going to work. Don't assume that your truck is going to function properly after a couple days of being shut down. It would be very easy for you to lose your heat after 2 days of, you know, shut down, and now you're in the middle of nowhere and you're stuck. It's not fun, it's not cool, okay? I was in my first winter, I was not expecting Wyoming. It was negative 39 degrees, negative 39 degrees. I was there for 2 days. They finally opened up the road after 2 days. I have an APU. You know, the bunk heater was working fine, but it was so cold out, and the Freightliners, unfortunately, are not as well insulated as the Internationals and probably the Peterbilts and the Kenworth, so the air just comes right up through the ground and through the doors and everything. The Freightliners suck, I kid you not. I used to love them, and now I got an International. I'm like, oh my God, I don't ever want to go back to a Freightliner. Oh, a bug. Big bug. Sorry. But, so you really want to make sure that you have blankets. You know, they have really thick, good, warm blankets at the truck stops. One of my friends just got a heavy, like, weighted blanket. She says that's really nice and warm, and that's good. Make sure that you have thermal underwear, have thick socks, have boots, have gloves. And I don't mean just the work gloves. I mean real heavy type of winter gloves. Like, when my last student and I drove through Wyoming, the wind came up so fast. We stopped at a rest area, and the wind came up so fast that it was just blowing snow everywhere. And he says, oh my God, this is like Hurricane Katrina with snow. This is crazy. You know, he was smoking a cigarette and it blew away. And he's like, I gotta get back in the truck or I'm gonna blow away. So you wanna be prepared. You wanna make sure that you have layers and layers of clothes, that, you know, you're not gonna freeze in the event that something like that happens to the truck. Like, even with my unit working, the back of the curtain in my bunk was 55 degrees. The front of the curtain, Goofball's water dish, the water completely froze. I mean, ice solid. It was frozen. And people are like, oh, well, if you had drove for a good company that had a good truck. The truck was a year old. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that it's negative 40 degrees. Hello? And what's amazing about that truck too is that I was in the cold weather for so long that some of the parts start breaking. The metal parts actually went brittle and broke. So I wound up driving from Laramie to Salt Lake City, and I blew a head gasket. And they were like, how the heck did you deliver this? And the truck was still running. It derated to 25% for a little while, and I stopped and I let it like cool down, and I parked for about a half hour, and then when I restarted it, it drove. And I think the further I drove it, the more damage I did to it, but I didn't break down on the side of the road. I still got back to the terminal, so it was all good. Something else to think about, well, first off, you have to make sure you have your chains, because that's the law. When you go to Colorado or Wyoming or places like that, you need to have chains on the truck or you will be fined. I don't chain. I have chains on my truck. Most companies, they give you the chains. My company at Prime, they have you buy them. You know, regardless, whatever. I have no intention of using chains. I have no intention of putting them on. I would pay somebody to put them on before I actually put them on. So always have cash on the truck. Like, you know, a few $100. It might be hard in the beginning, but, you know, in situations like that, yes, I would rather pay somebody to put my chains on than me to do it. But if the weather's that bad to need chains, I'm not going. Okay, my butt is parked. You know, chains should be used to get you out of a bad situation. I'm gonna link the Wyoming DOT link down below so that you can see that. They have the road closures. They'll put what roads they are, what exit numbers in between. They'll also tell you at what time they expect it to reopen, if it's black ice, if the chain laws are in effect where you need to throw chains in certain areas, like I think it's Evanston and Rock Springs. They have chain areas there. So that's a really, really good website for you to get accustomed to and get used to and learn from. If you get into a situation where you're stuck in snow or ice, there were two things that I've used to help get my drives over like a little hump of snow or a patch of ice or something to allow me to get out of a situation without having to throw the chains. What I did was I had a 2x4. It was small, but it was enough to allow one of the tires, the drives, to like get over the little hump, and it was enough to push me forward to get me out of the little space I was at. So that's one thing that you can do, is carry the wooden, just a 2x4, some little piece of board. The other thing that you guys are gonna get so tired of me talking about this darn kitty litter, but the kitty litter I talked about in the other videos, not only can you use it for the commode, not only can you use it for the cat, but because it's little wooden pellets, it's not like sandy or clayey like most litters. When you throw it down and try to use it to get traction, it worked really well. Now, I threw a lot of it down, but it got me out of a situation better than me trying to, you know, just back and forth, or trying to use regular kitty litter, or, you know, coming from the Northeast, we used to throw kitty litter down all the time. On ice, on snow, that was a way that we got traction. But because these are little wooden pellets, it really works a lot better. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight of the things that you can prepare for physically. And if you do, then mentally, you know you can do this. Nothing horrible is gonna happen that you can't get out of, okay? If you're parked, you're not gonna hit anything. If you're parked someplace where there's no restroom or there's no food, you're not gonna starve, you're not gonna have to go crawl into the snow and go to the bathroom. You know, you'll be prepared. You know, if you get stuck someplace, okay, you have your board or your kitty litter to try to get you out of the snow. And again, that's for stuff like when you get plowed in. Some people keep shovels on their trucks. So you'll also have enough ability to be able to stay warm. You know, other people ask me, well, how do you deal with the driving? Well, I drive it slow, I drive defensively. Always keep a cushion around you. You know, if somebody's alongside of me, it doesn't matter if there's snow out or not. I don't allow that person to stay next to me. I will slow down and let them move forward. And I know, and don't get offended, guys, because you know you're guilty of it. The testosterone will have, you know, trucks like neck and neck in the race. Why? Why you gotta do that? You're on snow, you're on ice, you're terrified. You could be on black ice. I don't know, you know, not everybody in the country is familiar with black ice, but it looks shiny like the ground, like it looks wet, and it's not. It's ice that you just slide on like glass. So you have to be aware of that. Just downshift, downshift, downshift till you feel comfortable and go. Now, most people, most experienced drivers will say, if it's ice, no dice. If it's snow, let it, you can go. Okay? I myself would rather drive on ice at night at 3 a.m. when nobody else is out there than on ice at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning when everybody's driving like a nut trying to get to work. That's me. I'm comfortable doing that. Not everybody's going to be comfortable doing that. But I did drive over the Delaware Memorial Bridge at 2 or 3 in the morning. Okay, it was solid ice, but nobody was there. So I was going 15 miles per hour with my hazards on in the right lane. If somebody wanted to fly by, they could. But other than that, I was by myself. I would rather be by myself out on the road than have to worry about all the lunatics. Because think about it. If it's like below 0 out, and it's not going up to more than 10 or 15 degrees, do you really think that the sun is going to come up and melt that ice? It's not. The ice is still going to be there in the morning. But these are things that you have to decide for yourself. Are you comfortable doing that? Do you feel safe? That's what I do. And all of this trucking has to do with what you're able to do. Okay, that's what it comes down to. If you decide to shut down because you can't handle it, you know what'll happen? They will either change the appointment, like I said earlier, or they'll get somebody like me that might feel a little bit more comfortable. That's all. And if you're really that scared, tell your fleet manager, tell your dispatcher and say, I'm really nervous about this load. I'm really nervous going into this weather. I will let you know when I shut down, and put all of it in writing on the Qualcomm or the PeopleNet or Zonar or whatever the heck you're using, okay? Always put it in writing. There are a lot of them I don't talk to. If they try to call up, I hang up on them. Oops, sorry, no cell phone. No cell phone. What are they going to do? How are they going to prove that I have signal? Because they're going to have to put whatever they want to say to me in writing. So it's on record. It's in the Qualcomm. I didn't call them. I put it in writing. So these are some of the things that you need to think about. These are some of the ways that you can prepare. And I hope this makes you feel better. And I want to say thank you so much for sharing, for liking, for commenting. This is like so great. We're growing so fast. I'm so happy. And I hope to see you out here trucking along. Bye.